Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. We're going to get started in just a second here. My name is Libby Mucciaroni. I am from the Organic Trade Association, and thank you so much for joining us today. It's fun seeing a huge crew popping on in right at the beginning of the webinar. We've got a great list of engaged members from the association joining us today, and we're so pleased to welcome everyone here to our webinar on the Organic Opportunity Toolkit. A couple of housekeeping items before we get to the content today. First of all, you all should have seen that we are recording this webinar and we will be sharing it out afterward on demand. For OTA members exclusively, you'll be able to download the Organic Opportunity Toolkit after the webinar. Following today's webinar, all registrants will receive a follow-up email that will include the link to download the toolkit as well as to view the recording. We will be holding a Q&A at the end of today's presentation, so please, throughout the presentation, ask your questions, and we'll do our best to cover every single one of those questions live during the webinar today. We'll also have some Q&A on the website as well, where you can go to download. And finally, if you happen to have any technical issues during today's presentation, please chat me in the Q&A box, and I will see how I can support you throughout the webinar. I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by our brilliant organic champions today. Gwendolyn Wyard, Vice President of Regulatory and Technical Affairs at the Organic Trade Association, who has been steadfastly and masterfully leading the association's work on developing the toolkit, will serve as our moderator. And she's joined today by OTA board members Britt Lundgren, Senior Director of Sustainability and Government Affairs at Stonyfield, and Matt Dillon, Chief Sustainability Officer at Farmer Focus. They've got a really great presentation to share with you all today. So with that, I'll hand things over to Matt to start our discussion. Thanks so much for being here today, Matt.
Thanks, Libby, and thank you all for joining us today. I hope this is something that excites you and that we can continue to dialogue about this in the days, weeks, and months ahead. I want to take a moment today to talk a little bit about why we started the task force. Back in 2020, there were a number of OTA member companies that became aware that Amazon had launched an initiative called the Climate Pledge Friendly. A little awkward wording in my opinion, but Climate Pledge Friendly. What we learned often from our sales teams was that there were a number of interesting certifications and seals that Amazon was accepting in this initiative, but there was one notable exception, and that exception was organic. When we learned that, we were a little confused and a little troubled because we also noted that things like regenerative organic certified, which you'll see here circled in red, which organic is at the base of, or organic got cotton, were a part of the certifications that they recognize, but not organic. So we reached out to OTA and had discussions, and sure enough, Gwen was already on it. She was already deep in discussions with Amazon to understand why. And what we learned initially was kind of shocking. We learned that Amazon felt that organic was a bit stale, that it wasn't a progressive certification. And then, in fact, our success, that 82% of households were purchasing organic, was potentially working against us. It was seen as a certification that everyone already knew about and didn't need to be informed about. But that was also a little bit odd to us because that has nothing to do with climate. That has to do with the certification and its success. So Gwen continued to enter into discussions with Amazon. And what became apparent was they really had a lack of understanding of the federal certification and how it compares to other eco labels in the marketplace and what the value of organic was. Thankfully, Gwen continued to have these conversations for over a year, and over that course of that year, the organic label was added to Amazon's Climate Pledge Friendly. So that was the first step in the launch of the task force, is learning this news on Amazon. What we then learned was that Walmart also had a sustainability initiative called Built for Better program. And in that Built for Better program for the planet, the icons that meet independent standards and recognized for environmental benefits were given an entry into this program. Once again, organic was not accepted. The reasons for Walmart were that they didn't quite understand organic, and they were concerned about organic yields being lower than conventional yields. And the response we got was, maybe in the future we will consider organic as a part of this climate, this build it better program. So, as brands who back organic, we were very concerned, and we went to OTA and said, we need a task force, and we want this task force to have a mandate that's going to be about assisting OTA in developing what we believe needs to be data-driven tools, and data is very important, data that's really reinforceable and defensible, so that we can advocate better with retail partners for the value of organic, not only for climate change, but other environmental or social benefits as well. And we as a task force really set out to do three things. One, to understand where retailers were in their sustainability initiatives. We knew about Amazon, we knew about Walmart. What about so many other retailers out there? What do they care about when it comes to sustainability? Where are they going, and how can we plug in and be a resource in educating them about the value of organic? As we mapped things out, we also asked ourselves, what do these retailers need from us? Not everyone you talk to at a retail establishment is going to be a sustainability professional deep in the weeds on life cycle analysis or science-based targets or greenhouse gas emissions as they apply to agriculture, food production. So what kind of a toolkit do we need? At what level of information that will really reach these retailers and help them understand organic in the context of their specific sustainability initiatives? And then third, we recognize that, there's a time for competition as businesses, and there's a time for collaboration. And we felt that it was important to create a roadmap for a collaborative process in which we could collectively, as a sector, advocate for the value of organic with our retail partners, so that we would all be singing, as it were, from the same songbook. Sure, maybe we'd add our own little high notes here and there as brands and differentiate in some ways, but have a consistency and a continuity in how we talked about organic overall. So the task force was launched in November of 2021, and we've been fast at work since that time. A quick reminder that task forces have very specific mandates at OTA, and they're for a specific amount of time. Once you've reached your mandate, it ends. So this task force will be coming to a close, but we'll share news with you about how it will be integrated into future councils. Okay, so the task force launched, and really what we were trying to do is educate on the benefits and contributions of organic to a healthy planet, to healthy people and healthy communities, and healthy businesses as well. We wanted the tools to be science-based, again, defensible, so that any claim we were making, anything we were stating, we could defend if there were questions about it. And we really wanted to ensure that USDA Organic certification was recognized as the gold standard when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to regenerative agriculture, when it comes to caring, again, about people, planet, and communities. So we've developed this toolkit. We're going to be sharing a little bit of it with you today, kind of a high-level sneak preview, going through a lot of it very fast, but this is only the beginning and more to come. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Gwen.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Matt, and hello, everyone. It's really exciting to be here. We have been doing a tremendous amount of work, and this is the day where we get to share it with all of you. As Matt said, this is going to be an overview, an explanation of what is in the toolkit that we have created for all of you. Everyone registered or attending the webinar will be receiving everything that you see here later today, so you'll have an opportunity to dig in, study, learn, imagine, and join us in our collective advocacy. I simply want to spend the next 15 minutes providing a tutorial of the resources that you'll soon have in your hands. This is going to be highly visual, and we're going to move very quickly. We want to leave time for questions, so please fasten your seatbelts. So what is in your toolkit? Here at a glance, starting at the top left and moving to the right. First, we have the 19-page resource guide, The Science Behind Organic. We have the organic sustainability wheel. We have a 4-page organic leave behind, or an organic primer. We have a 6-page organic standards and certification 101. We have, going down to the left-hand corner, we have a 1-page infographic that explains why organic is regenerative and so much more. We have a couple bonus infographics that are very specific for fiber and textiles, looking at cotton and wool and explaining the entire certification supply chain from farm to finished product. And then finally, we've created a PowerPoint presentation, a slide deck that incorporates all of this information, or more or less. It's made for you. It's made for you to use. It's made for you to choose. But everything that we have created has been put into this slide deck. And because our work in this space is forever in progress, we are closing in on an infographic that will address land use, organic yields, and how organic production increases resiliency of agricultural systems. That's the last piece to the toolkit that the task force is working on. We didn't quite get there for this webinar, but that will be coming soon. Okay, the organic sustainability wheel. Let's dig in and start with the organic sustainability wheel. I have control of the slides. Okay, so I want to start with the organic sustainability wheel because this wheel, it essentially serves as a table of contents for where we're going. It's an at-a-glance table of contents, if you will, for everything that we've created. So I think that we can all relate to the challenges of explaining what's behind the USDA organic seal and what does organic mean. And that really is because there is so much behind the seal. It's made up of many attributes. It's not just non-GMO. It's not just good for the environment. It's not just good for the economy. It's far more. It's the sum of all of the parts that make it unique and really, set it aside from the other eco labels in the marketplace. But that can be difficult to communicate. So from a high level perspective, we can say that organic is good for the planet, it's good for people, and it's good for business or the economy. But still within each of these broad buckets, there's much more. So when we start looking at the regulations, when we start looking at the research that's been conducted now for over 20 years, we find from a sustainability perspective, if we want to think of how organic fits into sustainability, thinking of the sustainability pillars, human, social, economic, environmental. From a sustainability perspective, organic checks many of the boxes. So as a task force, as we were thinking about these sustainability programs and we were thinking about how organic fits, we started looking at all of the research, all of the data that we could bring together and put into a toolkit. And as a representation of not only what organic means, everything that makes up organic, this is where this organic wheel comes together. And behind the organic wheel is the resource guide, which I'll get to in just a minute. But taking a quick look at this organic wheel of sustainability, I truly love this wheel. It provides a really great way, I think, for us all collectively to be able to say, good for the planet. In this blue section here, protects natural resources, sequesters carbon, reduces greenhouse gas emissions, regenerates soil health, protects biodiversity plus pollinators, increases resiliency of agricultural systems. Each one of those statements is based on the requirements in the organic regulations and over 20 years of research that points to the outcomes of these requirements, that supports the outcomes, that proves the science behind these particular outcomes, these particular requirements. So we really thought through the entire regulation and said, okay, what are the requirements for people, for animals? How is organic good for people and the animals? What are those requirements in the regulations? Let's cite those requirements in the CFR. And now let's go out and find all of the scientific research that is out there that really points to the outcomes of those requirements. So you can go around the wheel. And if we're thinking about how to communicate, how to message, how to educate on organic, and we want to do so using a data-driven communications toolkit. This wheel, every single slice, every section of this wheel is supported by a collection of science that we have put into the resource guide. So we really like to think about presenting organic from this perspective. If you wanted to focus on the planet, you could just say, okay, let's talk about how organic protects natural resources. That could be a 5-minute presentation. That could be a 10-minute presentation, 1-minute presentation. You could go around the entire wheel and really just provide an amazing presentation on what organic means by following each section of the wheel. What is also exciting about this wheel is that we have a Spanish version. And what, of course, is even more exciting is that this is a data-driven organic sustainability wheel, just like the entire toolkit is data-driven. So this next part of the toolkit is the resource guide, the science behind organic. This is really the foundation of our work. This is where the task force started. This resource guide reflects a collection of attribute statements on the positive impacts of organic food, fiber, and agriculture. It's all supported by a collection of existing government data, peer-reviewed studies, and other scientific literature. We have synthesized information into a reference guide that can be used to inform the data-driven communications for multiple audiences, including national retailers. This was developed in collaboration with the Organic Center. I want to give a huge shout out. The Organic Center worked with us to go through all of these attribute statements to find all of the best, the most current, the most relevant, the most credible data points we could find to support the development of this toolkit. Also in this process, and this is going to be ongoing, we were able to identify where the gaps are. If this is the total collection of all the best science, it was very easy for us to say, well, gosh, under good for the economy, when it comes to saying that organic farming and processing stimulates local economies, we're a little slight on the data points there. Or perhaps under organic protects the environment. We have a lot of great data, but some of it's getting a little bit old. So it's really serving as a library, a place for us to go to say, you know, we need to keep this library full, current, and make sure that research continues. So this is a living, breathing document that will continue to be updated periodically. So just to take a look very quickly, again, this is just the visual tutorial. This is a 19-page document. We've got it divided up just like the wheel, good for the planet, good for the people, good for economy, and then also backed by third-party certification and federal law. We have these broad categories. Organic mitigates climate change, for example, and then you can go under that section and find a statement sequesters carbon by promoting soil health, for example. And then you could go into a subsection from there, 44% more stable sequestered carbon than conventional. For each of those attribute statements, you can click on a link that will take you to the research paper that supports that statement. In many cases, you will have a link to the Organic Center summary. That will provide a summary of the research as well as a link to the research paper. So again, 19 pages, moving through this quickly, too small to see here, but just to know that we've got it divided up. So many great attributes. Every single statement in here is tied to something that is either existing government data, peer-reviewed study, or some other scientific literature. Also, I just want to note for this section backed by third-party certification and federal law, this is a section where we have included a lot of specific references to the regulation. We have also provided a lot of data that demonstrates how consumers of the values that they have and what they're looking for connect with the requirements of the regulation, and how that ties to trust in the USDA seal in terms of being backed by third-party certification and federal law. All right, so next up, in terms of taking a look at what we're calling the leave behind. So this is the summary. We created this First, before we actually created the entire presentation deck, worked kind of frontwards and backwards in the creation of this leave behind. But imagine you've just sat down, you've just had a meeting with the retailer that you're working with, you're educating, you're communicating on organic, you're explaining why it's so important to have more organic products on the shelves. You've completed your presentation, and then you slide this leave behind the desk. And this leave behind is just a really concise, compelling, and fresh summary of the presentation. We have started off with the organic wheel, so you can use that as a visual prop to talk about all the various attributes of organic. We have a page that features good for the planet. Again, every data point in here, every statement in here either ties to the regulation or it ties to a scientific paper. Good for the planet, good for the people, good for business. We've pulled in really a lot of highlights from our industry, our most recent industry survey, from the Edelman survey, data that we've collected in partnership with Nielsen, with the Natural Marketing Institute. A lot of good current data in here that speaks to consumer preferences as well as the state of the organic industry. Okay, in addition to the 4-page leave behind, do a quick time check here. This document is something that has been, let's just say hardly a day passes when I don't receive a question about how regenerative agriculture is different than organic, or how it's the same, or questions that are just trying to understand what the connection is or is not between USDA organic and regenerative. I would say that this one-pager here may be the #1 requested piece of information in 2022. So what we have done in creating this one-pager is that we have, rather than comparing organic to regenerative organic, which is, I often see that's the comparison that many are trying to make. What we have done is we've compared non-organic regenerative to certified organic. And in doing so, it allows us to focus on regenerative non-organic as being something that the answer in almost all cases is it depends, not federally defined or enforced. It allows us to take a look at the pillars of regenerative agriculture as they're largely recognized, and then compare them to what are the requirements in the regulations. And the requirements in the regulations we have pulled right into this document. So a lot of the text here, the large majority of the text on the right side when we're looking at organic, how it protects natural resources, how it protects cover crops, how it performs when it comes to tillage, chemical fertilization, synthetic pesticides, animal welfare, GMOs. We've pulled language right from the organic regulations. The other thing I want to say about the regenerative and so much more is that we have demonstrated in this one-pager how organic is regenerative and so much more by also pointing to additional requirements that are in the organic regulations that aren't addressed in regenerative agriculture. And also we want to emphasize that regenerative is a focus at the farm level, where organic certification is a full supply chain certification. So it's really important that there's all of the requirements at the farm level. That's where regenerative lives. But with organic, we go on then through the supply chain and all through the requirements that are involved in the handling and processing of organic. So we think this will be a super helpful one-pager for so many of you out there that are kind of grappling with the differences between regenerative and organic. We are very supportive of regenerative organic certification, regenerative certification where USDA Organic is the baseline. So again, that's why we chose to compare the non-organic to the organic. Also, in the toolkit, we've created a very nice, it's 6 pages or 16 pages, depending on how you want to look at it, It's in English and it's in Spanish. It is a primer on the organic standards and organic certification. Very high level, but very specific to all of the different pieces and parts that are involved in the organic standards for crops, livestock, and processing, as well as the certification process, eligibility, choosing a certifier, steps to certification, the organic systems plan, offsetting certification costs, et cetera, et cetera. This particular tool in the toolkit was developed with transition in mind, making sure that everybody has a tool in the toolkit. If you're working with a farmer that is transitioning to organic, that's definitely a place where this type of information could be very helpful, all the way on up to if you're meeting with a retailer that just wants to, before you get into the attributes of organic and how it addresses climate change and how it's regenerative, just a base level of understanding the basic requirements and what certification entails. And here, just another closer up visual here of the steps to certification. You'll see we have the Spanish version. We do have the Spanish version of the entire 101. Okay, a couple of the bonus graphics. We have a unique situation for all of our members out there that are operating in the fiber and textile space. All of the raw materials, the cotton, the wool, certified at the farm level under USDA Organic, but then we move into private standards once you get into the processing of fiber. And so it's a little bit unique when we're talking about certification from the farm to the finished product. We recognize that for the processing, we then jump into private standards, whether that's the organic content standard under Textile Exchange, or in this case, where we're focusing on the Global Organic Textile Standard. The Organic Trade Association is an owner of the Global Organic Textile Standard. We like to educate and promote on this wonderful private standard that completes certification all the way through the supply chain to that finished product. We want to make sure all of our fiber members out there also have tools in the toolbox that they can use, given the unique circumstances of this kind of dual certification of USDA Organic and the private standard. So we've created some graphics. This one's specific to cotton. This one is specific to sheep or to wool. Okay, so that was fast. There's a lot in there. And again, I'm looking forward to everybody being able to really dig in, study, learn, imagine, and take action. We've gone through basically the info products, if you will, the standalone info products. Now I want to take a quick look at the presentation deck. And I'm going to move very quickly because you have already seen most of it, but I just want to make sure you all have an idea of what it looks like and talk a little bit more about how it can be customized. So the organic opportunity. This is the cover slide to the deck. And you'll see up in the right-hand corner, presented by, presenter name. This is just an example. The entire deck is completely editable. It is highly customizable. You can make it your own. You could put your own picture in there, your name, your own branding, but we have set this up so that it brings together the entire toolkit. So customizable. Opening whichever sustainability benefits are most important to your business, from reducing greenhouse gases to regenerating soil health to protecting human health. There's only one option that addresses the full suite of environmental and social concerns and is backed by federal certification, USDA Organic. Kind of an opener. We've got some stats right here at the beginning to give the audience an idea of where organic is at in terms of its growth, sales, US households. There's that 82% that Matthew talked about earlier in his portion of the presentation. This is a version of an Organic 101 that we're calling the Organic Guarantee. And then we jump into the meat of the presentation. So this is really exciting. There's this wonderful sustainability wheel, organic sustainability wheel again, and it serves as the breaks to the portion of the presentation. So we start off with good for the planet. Every slide in the deck corresponds to a slice of the wheel. So following this slide, you'll see a slide on protects natural resources, a slide on sequesters carbon, and so on and so forth. Everything that you're seeing here, these same stats, these same figures, they are in the leave behind. There's not as much in the deck itself as in the leave behind, but then you could go to the resource guide and you could pull in additional stats. We have pulled in the data points, some of the data points that we think are particularly exciting, particularly compelling. But again, you could go in and mix this up. Highly editable to every word, every picture, every component of this can be changed around. This is a deck for you to use, for you to choose. So this is the visual part. I'm going to move through this quickly so we can hand it over to Britt. Sequesters carbon and reduces greenhouse gas emissions. So that's not all of the slides. I'm just providing just a couple examples again, so everybody can just get a taste of what is in here. The section good for people and the animals. Again, every section, there's a slide to every section. Every slide, every data point goes back to the resource guide. Protecting human health, protecting animal health and welfare. And today is the deadline for submitting comments on the OLPS rule. So this slide is going to become even more meaningful as we update, as we freshen the organic standards to have stronger standards in the area of animal welfare. Everybody gives a big applaud. This is the deadline. Our comments are going in today. Protecting families and protecting farm workers. This has been a really, really important part of our discussions and really focusing in on what data is out there in terms of how families and how farm workers are impacted by agricultural practices. Good for business. I stated earlier in terms of where we see gaps in research where more information is needed. I think more data points on how organic is good for business. That's an area where we definitely want our collection of data points in the resource guide to be more robust. But here we are providing you again with data right from our most recent industry survey. Creates jobs, drives development, stimulates the economy. Trusted by value-driven consumers, the organic shopper. This is data from the recent Edelman 2022 survey. And then here's a specific slide. You know, again, the entire deck, highly editable. But this is really an opportunity. This is a slide that I'm very, very interested in terms of when all of you go out and grab hold of this presentation and make it your own. Here's a slide that is set up for you to tell a story, from your business perspective or from your partner's business perspective or about the farms that you're working with. This is the slide where you can explain how organic is profitable for farms and businesses, how it's good for your business. And then always, we start with, we end with, organic is federally guaranteed and traceable. It is the only eco label in the marketplace that is backed by third-party certification. It's federally defined, it's federally enforced, it provides traceability from the farm to the consumer. And it is the only eco label in the marketplace that has that backing. So with that, I am going to say thank you. I'm really, really excited about all of this work. It's been wonderful working with the task force. It's been wonderful working with the Organic Center. I'm going to hand this over now to Britt that's going to talk about collective advocacy. You heard me say that term earlier. Britt's going to talk more about how the toolkit can be used. Thanks.
Thank you, Gwendolyn. I am really excited about this piece of the work of the task force because it's where we get to put all of this great material into action. And there are so many different ways that we can all start using the materials in the toolkit. And I think, as Gwendolyn said, it's great to think about blending content about your own business, specific data points that you can layer into this information in the toolkit to really bring the material to life and help you tell a really compelling story, whether you're talking to retailers or other audiences. And this is one of the things that we realized as we were working as a task force, is that there are lots of potential audiences for this materials. We started out with a real focus on retailers, and particularly those retailers that are in the process of developing sustainability standards, because we wanted to make sure organic was recognized in those standards. But as we got into it, we realized there were so many different places to use it. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about those different audiences and how you might use this material. And then I'll get into some examples about how we've started using this material at Stonyfield. So starting with retailers, some things to consider are particularly who is your audience at the retailer. Is it a meeting between executives from your company and executives at the retail side? Is it a meeting between sustainability professionals in your company and sustainability professionals at the retailer? Or is it a more traditional meeting with your buyers or with your sales team and buyers from the retailer? And at Stonyfield, we know that our sales team is really the front line in our conversation with these retailers. And so we want to make sure that they have all the retailers, all the resources that they can have to communicate the organic advantage in their meeting with buyers. And I probably made Gwendolyn a little nuts as we were doing the work of the task force, because as we were creating this content, I saw it coming together. I was saying, oh, can I start using this? And we actually have started using it in a couple of different ways. And the first was with our own sales team. So we shared the content of the toolkit with the members of our sales team at our most recent national sales meeting, which happened in late July. And this was an educational opportunity for that team to reinforce the meaning and benefits of organic certification so that they can be ready to communicate these things. But it was also an opportunity to say, here are resources that you can turn around and start using in your meetings with buyers that you're working with. Another way that we can build on this is by thinking about institutional buyers. So this is an area that I think has traditionally been a white space for the organic sector. We don't have a lot of market penetration in institutions. But we also know that so many colleges and universities and hospitals are setting sustainability goals and including their food sourcing as part of those sustainability targets. And it's really clear that organic should be a part of how they're getting this done. And the toolkit really provides the materials to make that case to them. For example, lots of universities are setting targets for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And the toolkit clearly lays out how organic confers advantages when it comes to addressing climate change. So these materials can really help in making the case that by increasing sourcing of organic, we're advancing shared goals around things like climate change across the industry. Then we also have our champions in the retail sector. And these are retailers who are already moving a lot of organic, retailers like Whole Foods or the co-ops or PCC. And these materials can also be helpful to them, both to help them bolster their case for selling more organic in their store, but also for pulling out information that they can communicate with their consumers to highlight the benefits of organic and increase interest in organic products in the store. Another area where we can start using this toolkit is with media and helping reporters build their understanding of the benefits of organic. I think we have seen all too often that reporters can tend to focus on the controversy when it comes to organic. But this is really a great opportunity when you are talking to reporters to educate them about the benefits that organic creates, and to do that in a way that's backed by peer-reviewed data from the scientific literature, to really bring the point home that this is not just aspirational. We now have a really robust data set that communicates all of these different benefits of organic across different systems. And I think these materials are always strongest when you can then take that information and layer it in with supporting data and details from your own business. Another audience for the toolkit is Hill staff and our work on government affairs. I have been in more meetings with Hill staff than I care to count, where the staffer, it became clear during the course of the meeting that maybe they really didn't know what organic certification entailed. And maybe they were new to working on agriculture entirely. And so we know that we often have like an educational need when we go into these meetings with Hill staff, but we now have this toolkit which we can reference during the meeting to touch on key points about organic certification and organic benefits. But it's also a great leave behind so that that staffer has the resources available when questions come up in the course of their work about organic. And all of this really underpins the why for Congress on the value of federal investments in resources that can protect the organic standard and help us to grow organic certification. Then, of course, there's also more public forums where we can work together to bring these materials forward at conferences and other events that are looking at sustainable agriculture. And these include spaces that we're all in frequently, like Expo, but they could also include events like Sustainable Brands or Green Biz, which are spaces where organic hasn't always been as much at the table as it should be. And again, similar to some of these other audiences where they maybe just aren't as educated about the meaning or benefits of organic, this provides a way into that conversation that's really backed up by science. And then the last audience I'll highlight is investors. And we know that investors are also increasingly interested in understanding the climate and other sustainability impacts of the businesses that they are investing in. And once again, this toolkit can really provide the background for making that case, especially when you build in supporting data from your own business about how you're bringing these activities to life. So we created these materials in a task force, and that task force is now becoming a part of the Sustainable Food Trade Action Council, which is one of the OTA sector councils. And this is where you all can join us, if you're not a member of that council already, to strategize and work on shared advocacy with these materials. So I just want to call out that we will be reserving time at future SFTA council meetings to plan for opportunities to work together in reaching out to all of these audiences in a collective way. So Libby, if we could go to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit now about how we've started using this material at Stonyfield. So I mentioned already that we've been using this content with our sales team. We've also used some of the graphics from the toolkit in our impact report, which you can find on our website, and we've got an image from that here. At Stonyfield, we've always maintained that organic certification is really fundamental to how we achieve our sustainability goals. And the toolkit content has been perfect for really underscoring that broader point. And not only were we able to take it and put it in the impact report itself, but we've now taken pieces out to use in our social communications on Instagram and LinkedIn and other places where we want to just take little pieces of the message to, trumpet the benefits of organic and encourage people to come and see our impact to learn more about all the exciting things we have going on. So we've integrated this content with more specific information about our own sustainability initiatives to bring this information to life. So the wheel that Gwendolyn showed talks broadly about organic certification and the benefits that it creates for business and how it's good for farmers and farm businesses. And we then built on that by including more specific content in the impact report, like interviews with our producers in our direct supply, where they talk about why they are certified organic and why they work with Stonyfield. And then we've also used this content with some retailers so far. So I've had the chance to bring this content to meetings with two different retailers, one major national retailer and one local co-op. In the case of the national retailer, I had the opportunity to present this to a group of their dairy buyers on our work on sustainability. And I went into this meeting with the assumption that these buyers did have some familiarity with organic, but that they might not be totally familiar with how certification works or the benefits that certification creates. And the toolkit was a really great platform for laying this out for them and then bringing in the supporting information about our work at Stonyfield. And honestly, I wasn't sure if I would get questions from this audience or how engaged they would be, but they were really animated and excited about the content. And it was clear because their questions were very relevant and pointed, and they also were clearly excited about not just what they were learning about the Stonyfield and our brand, but how the information that we were conveying could support the case for organic in other places around the store. And then with the co-op that I spoke to, I was invited to speak at their annual meeting about Stonyfield's sustainability initiatives with farmers in this region. And I knew that this audience would be a much more educated audience about the meaning of organic, but the toolkit was still a really great jumping off point to underscore why organic is the foundation for sustainability for us at Stonyfield. And I think that these two examples really were an opportunity to test out the ways in which this toolkit can flex depending on who your audience is. I didn't use the same pieces of the toolkit in each meeting. I really shuffled things around, and it works as a high-level overview of organic, but it also has sufficient detail and is backed by that peer-reviewed research so that you can make it informative for a more educated audience at the same time. Libby, can we go to the last slide? I want to say a huge thank you to the members of the task force who worked hard over the course of the past year to build this concept and help bring it to life. And I also want to say a huge thank you to the Organic Center for all that they did to provide the supporting data that we needed to make the points that we wanted to talk about. And of course, to the OTA staff who worked really hard to bring this all together and corral all of us members of the task force and all of the crazy ideas that we had in this process. So this is a living document, and we really hope to grow it as time goes on and as we get more and more research pointing to the benefits of organic. And we also hope to bring all of you in and have you start using this document with us. So we welcome you to join us in the SFTA Council, or reach out to Gwendolyn or Libby or Matt or myself to learn more about what we've got and how you can engage. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Britt. That was really fantastic as well. And thanks to Gwen and Matt. As you can see on the screen, I'm going to share a link right now, everyone. This is your chance. This is the way that you can download your toolkit. You can fill out this form. Let me tell you briefly about what to expect here. At the end of the presentation, you're also going to get an email a couple hours after today's webinar where you'll have a link to register to access the toolkit. First and foremost, you'll get an email that'll have all of the information about what is coming to you and what when you download, what you're going to get. In addition to that, you'll have access to the recording of today's webinar. As soon as that's ready to go, that email is shipping out to every single person that registered. We would highly encourage all of you to share that link, the registration link for the toolkit, out with your colleagues and get as much access to all of this information as possible. The webpage has all sorts of clear, detailed information about what to expect to see in the toolkit, and we're really excited to get this into your hands and see all of the different questions that you're going to have both about the toolkit right now and after you've had a chance to dig in a little bit more. Again, I'm going to welcome on Gwen and Matt. I'm going to turn off these slides here for a second. And we're going to start into our Q&A for today. I'm really excited to get answering all of the different questions that we've seen coming in. So many great questions. Can't wait to hear all of the responses from everyone. So thanks again for the great presentation. My first question that I have for all of you is, from your perspective, where do you want to see this work progressing in the future for OTA and for our members? And I'll start things off with Gwen.
Great, thanks, Libby. I think I'd like to see it progress exactly how we intend for it to progress, collective advocacy. I'm really excited about the opportunity for us to collectively get educated and collectively get out there and sing from the same songbook. So I think about that wheel, and if every single member and every single, salesperson, every marketing person, and every single company, every single organization could go around the wheel and spend 2 to 3 minutes talking about how organic protects natural resources, how organic drives rural development. If everybody could, in a very educated and eloquent manner, talk to each slice or piece of that wheel, we would be just jamming. So I'm really excited about all of the various ways we can collectively together get us trained up and get out there and educate on organic.
Great, thanks, Matt.
I think that, the tools we've already developed are very, very useful, but by the nature of trying to develop something for the industry as a whole, we've also had to keep it at kind of a meta level of talking about benefits of organic. So for example, there've been questions about specifics on cotton that I've seen come up. And there's a difference between the benefits of organic and potentially climate impact on dairy versus poultry versus grains versus produce versus coffee. And so what would be really neat to see is for us to collectively, not just invest in advocacy, which is important, but for us to collectively invest in additional research, right? Like all of us as individual companies can do LCAs, and we can analyze our supply chains to say, oh, here, my organic soy is better than conventional soy from a greenhouse gas perspective. And we do that research individually. But what if we open sourced it? What if we created a crowdsourcing model where we funded things together, these more in-depth assessments and research on the benefits for organic by our sectors, and then shared that information amongst each other? And I do think that will add additional value for each of our brands. And we need that research. We want to make sure that this is a living document that doesn't just rest on the laurels of the research we have today, but continues to evolve with greater specificity, nuance, and value.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Matt. And Britt, what are your thoughts?
I am really just excited to get out there and start using this information with audiences that can sometimes be skeptical about the benefits of organic. So like parts of the sustainability and environmental community that maybe haven't always recognized organic for the benefits that it brings. I think that a challenge that we've had for a long time in the organic sector is that we just haven't had investment in the kinds of research that Matthew is talking about and the kinds of research that are in this toolkit. I mean, we didn't even have dedicated organic research funding until maybe a decade ago, maybe it was 15 years ago, but it hasn't been that long, especially when you think in terms of research time, which is wicked slow. So I think that we finally have like this set of information that we can bring forward as a body to say, look at this wheel, look at all of the ways in which organic creates benefits. And I am just really interested to see what it's like to get out there and start using this in various audiences to really advance people's shared understanding of the benefits of organic.
Great. Thank you so much for that. I love it. So my next question is, how would you describe, Gwen, your favorite part of the toolkit overall?
Well, I think it's probably obvious at this point. The wheel.
That's an understandable, absolutely understandable. And I love that it's a virtual background. If everyone wants that, you're going to have it in the toolkit. You can download your own version of the wheel and make it your own virtual background for future meetings with your colleagues. Okay, so another question that I have here is, if someone wants to offer updates to the resource guide, I saw someone ask a question about more resources on Hispanic consumers, for example. Gwen, how are folks going to be able to provide information to us?
Great, thanks, Libby. That is exactly what we want. And I think to Matt's point, also to Britt's, I am really excited about how we can continue to build the organic, the resource guide. So we will update it periodically. And when you, if you go on to the webpage, or you're going to receive a link as soon as the webinar is over, you can fill out a form. And when you fill out that form, you will be added to a list where you will receive updates. You'll receive updates. You'll have an opportunity to provide feedback. You will be provided with the information that you need to be able to then provide us with any information that you'd like to offer on the resource guide itself. And you'll be provided with updates whenever any of these tools, right? They're evergreen in many ways, but given the data points, we're going to have to periodically make sure that all of the tools in the toolkit are updated over time. So get on that list and you'll receive the updates.
Great, thanks so much. I feel like I'm going to be saying a lot. Get on that list, download and get on the list and share this resource with OTA members. So my next question is a bit about how accessible is the toolkit? How accessible are all of these resources? Who has access to them? And can you talk a little bit more about that? Gwen?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I think the overview that we provided at the very beginning, the wheel behind me, as well as the Organic 101 on the standards and certification, those are publicly available. Everything else is member exclusive. So again, if you are a member, you will have access to all of the tools in the toolkit. If you're not a member, or if you know somebody that would like to be a member, certainly we can provide the information needed to get folks signed up.
Great, thanks so much. So Britt, you talked about this a little bit more, but how would you reiterate again to folks, if you're wanting to get more plugged into sustainability and climate issues at the trade association, what's the best ways and who to reach out to? I'll put some information in the chat while you're kind of talking a little bit more about ways to connect if you're not already.
Yeah, we started this work in a specific task force, and sometimes when we see a need for something specific like new materials, we'll create a task force and there will be an announcement that goes out. You kind of have to keep an eye on the news flash to catch it when we launch these things. But the home for work on sustainability at OTA is now the Sustainable Food Trade Action Council, and that is a great place for folks to get involved. We meet on a quarterly basis, and that is the place where we bring together the work of this task force, our work on climate, and our work in connecting OTA members with resources to help them improve sustainability across the board on a wide variety of topics, everything from packaging to climate, the full gamut. And Adrienne is the leader of that. I saw, Libby, you just put her email in the chat, so folks can reach out to Adrienne. They can also feel free to reach out to Matthew or myself. We're happy to connect you with that work.
Great, thanks so much, Britt. So I have one final question for each of you. And what's your elevator pitch, your 30-second takeaway that you'd offer to each of the attendees today? And I will start with you, Matt.
I think I just remind all of us, like, two things. One, it's two for me. Sorry, Libby. Stronger together, like we are stronger together when we sing from the same playbook. And two, let's not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Like, this is a great tool that we ourselves, as people who helped create it, recognize that, there's room for improvement. But let's get out there, sing from that same songbook together, start testing it out in waters, learn from it, get feedback from folks, what else needs to be done, and keep evolving and iterating, as opposed to just saying, oh, it's not enough or it's not perfect. Because I am a perfectionist and I've been thinking that way. I imagine there's others thinking that way sometimes too.
Great, I loved both of them. Thanks so much. Britt, how about you?
Organic has a really great story to tell, and I think that this toolkit is the first time that we're really bringing all of the different characters in that story onto the same page and making them accessible and customizable. And I just think we have such an opportunity in front of us to bring this material to life and combine the toolkit content with our own data and our own stories from our businesses, and really just get out there and help grow organic.
Great, thanks so much, Britt. And Gwen, I'll give you the final words here today.
That's tough. I think that Britt and Matt said what I really wanted to say, but I am super excited to hear from our members. I really want to see your experience as soon as possible. What will your slide deck look like? I think we are setting everybody up for success, but the real success is going to be all the individual case studies. So I think that, my parting words to everyone is I don't want very much time to go by until I hear from a member, until somebody reaches out and says, hey, Gwen, we just put our slide deck together. We're ready to give a presentation. We'd love you to take a look. We'd love your feedback. These are, this is what we're still after. I want to keep this conversation going, and I'm really looking for feedback soon and often. So that will be kind of the affirmation to all of the work that we've done. That first email, that first phone call, that like, we're ready to roll, take a look. So thanks.
Great. I really love that. Well, thank you to Matt, to Britt, Gwen. This has just been a really great conversation. The feedback that we're already getting is really speaking to how we're meeting a need. And we really want to also thank everyone in attendance today. It's been a great audience to see, such an engaged audience. Before we go, I do want to do one quick little plug for some more educational opportunities from the Trade Association. We have 2 upcoming webinars. One is from the Organic Center. It's on spices, herbs, and tea. It's based off of a recently published Organic Center report. And our other webinar we're just launching today, it's called Diversifying Organic. We can share a lot more. I'm going to send you over to the education page at ota.com where you can read more about each of these webinars, register. We hope to see you at those webinars. And again, on behalf of the Organic Trade Association staff, our board of directors, thanks so much to Britt, Matt, and Gwendolyn. And thanks so much for everyone for joining us today. We see there's so many more questions, and we're looking forward to hearing from you. Fill out the survey afterward. Let us know some of your questions right there. And we'll be in touch soon at the next educational opportunity. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thanks.